Hi everyone. I hope you were able to watch all of the 4 videos on the drafting side of MAST methodology and the overview of all 8 steps. This is going to start the next 4 videos, which is about checking. And so some general things about checking is it's set up in 2 halves to basically say, what is the normal natural writing process? It's writing and then it's checking. Now that's also true for oral language. It is taking in and then it's correcting. And so these 2 things are broken into 2 halves. They are not isolated though. Okay, they're basically distinctive characteristics of effort. Okay, one is to draft, one is to check. And so what happens with the checking? It does a couple things. One is it starts refining and the refining process. These are set up to take on every type of error that's going to happen in the natural writing process of translation or natural oral language drafting process of translation. And so there's some extra things in oral language that have technology based into it, but we still have set up the 8 steps to capture those as well with the tool that we have, which is BTT Recorder. So what happens in checking? It also starts to reveal what you did not do. As you go through each of these steps, they start looking backwards. You're going forward through the 8 steps, but you're looking backwards on what you missed. And that thing can be, I missed a step in writing, I missed a step in oral language translation, I missed a step in the drafting, or I missed a step in the checking. So it's there as a safety net to say, we not only know that you made a mistake, we know where you made the mistake a lot of times. So I want to give you your eyes as you go through this to say there's 2 things happening. 1 is you're catching mistakes. 2 is you're teaching yourself where you made mistakes and how. That's what MAST is designed to do. The first of these 4 steps is to actually self-edit. Okay, now we chose edit versus check because it looks like editing. You are going through and you're teaching yourself to look for little things, look for mistakes that are happening. How does this naturally happen all the time? Is that somebody just did a blind draft. Blind draft is from a language theory that basically is cognitive language theory. It's high pressure. You're nervous, it's intense, and you just did a blind draft. Even when it gets easier, you're still saying, I finished that blind draft. What it's supposed to do is you do several of those and then you go to check a chapter. You're in a relief state now. Wow, I'm relieved. I'm done with the blind drafting phase of this chapter. 2 things happen. 1 is you naturally want to relax and you say, oh, let me get lazy. And you skip the step. This is the most commonly skipped step on accident. The first most common step skipped is blind draft because people cheat. The second one is people get like a little bit tired and then they do this on accident and they say, ooh, I did something. I'm finished, here, you take my paper. And they jump to peer edit. Well, you need to do the effort of going through and saying, I need to check this myself. Think about ownership. I've heard all over the world that MAST gives people their dignity back because of ownership. You don't want to skip your individualized ownership. You now have been asked to steward God's word through the checking of it. That's a high responsibility and it's a privilege, it's an honor. And so now what you need to do is look at a trusted source text and say, what did I miss? That's your number 1 question in self-edit. What did I miss? And you start looking, did I miss anything? When people skip this step, they almost always are missing something. You just did a blind draft. You're going to miss some things. And so the self-edit is, what did I miss? As this happens, you can look for grammatical mistakes. You can bring in extra sources. You can bring in other things, but primarily it's now putting your eyes back on source text and your text. How did I do? Do a comparison. This is not a low-level thing. This is a higher-level thing. Higher-level thinking is part of this process. It demands internalized questions. What did I miss itself is a synthesis question because it's making you compare, which is one of the top layers of thinking. So as you do that, you're starting to compare one text to another. You're already higher-level thinking. This is not small. This is a big deal. Just because a question sounds simple doesn't mean it is simple. You're working hard still. Okay, so what did I miss actually does that, and it analyzes the job of naturalness, and that's the second thing. How do I sound is one of the things that you say. It's an analysis function. Again, higher level thinking. If you do just those two things, you're doing a great self-edit. Of course, look for grammar. Of course, look for mistakes that are unseen that you didn't know you did. Okay, but you're still going to miss some. And this is why the next step is just as important as this first step. But you can bring in other resources. We have a lot of notes, questions, words, okay, but you don't necessarily always want to bring them in for every single chapter. I do want to point out that authentic assessment is something that you're going to do. Please see that video. I'll say this in every one of these 4 videos for checking. Authentic assessment gives you a guideline for the things that you should be looking for. What are the things on your authentic assessment rubric that you can look for in your self-edit? Look for those things, find those things. Punctuation is often one of those. Look for them. How you might have different things like commas, colons, semicolons, whatever your language functioning has, now is the time to look for those as well. And then move it on to a peer edit, which I'll talk about in the next video. So please be sure to review this one and look for the next one in peer edit, and how do those two work together? What happens in a self-edit versus a peer edit, and all of the steps of checking. Thank you very much, and happy checking. Feel relieved that you did a good job on a blind draft, but don't forget how important this step is. Thank you.